President Trump's recent military activities in Venezuela have sparked widespread concerns for many nations around the world. One of South Africa's leadership's responses is as follows.
Thank you very much. The issue Eyewitness News, in our view, is not about the readiness of defense. We reject militarism. That's the first point.
Now, Mr. Mbalulu speaks about this rejection of militarism as a stance that seems to be long-standing in the government. Prior to the ANC taking power, they had a military wing, commonly known to you as Mkhonto we Sizwe. This was later disbanded in 1993 as part of the negotiations. Since then, military activities in South Africa have been minimal. This is not to say we ought to have engaged in wars with other countries. It is to strengthen and protect the sovereignty of the Republic. The demilitarization was never limited to MK. It stretched over to our Army and Navy. One of the early examples was the decommissioning of our nuclear weapons in the name of world peace, while other countries doubled and tripled their arsenals. Look how powerful those particular countries are today, not just in military power, but in the economy, in world influence.
All of you know that South Africa, in its position in the world, we are a global player. In Africa, we are the leader in terms of economics and geopolitics. And therefore, we are considered a big brother. No, you cannot be a big brother if you are unable to wield a stick that will make people be afraid. Now you may be asking yourself, what is he talking about and all that? How many of you will build a beautiful and expensive house and not fence it and protect it? I don't think none of you will do that. Constitutionally, the South African National Defence Force is mandated to protect and defend the country. Now, any home will display its character, its worthiness, by the level of security that it places around it. Now, if we're going to play big brother in Africa, and therefore what we give for the Defence Force should symbolize that. A lot has been said about the South African National Defence Force not being well equipped, not being resourced and all that. I'm not going to get into that, but I'm saying and I'm appealing to the politicians that are here that next time you sit down and debate, think whether you are protected or not. Because that grant that you're giving to the people out there, the education of your children and everything else will not materialize if you're not protected. I'm sure many of you know that we are sharing our grants for the poor with people who are not supposed to share the grants. And that is because we are not protected. Our borders are porous. And they're porous because you, the politicians, have decided you want a Mickey Mouse Defence Force. I'm sorry to say that. And by the way, the Adjutant General is here. I'm protected. I'm not making a political speech, by the way.
In his attempt to not break the toes he's already stepped on, Lieutenant General Mapaha ends with a disclaimer, one that I think, although he was trying to play it safe, was not necessary. The military and the public should not be tippy-toeing around politicians and serious issues. The more we do this, the more we allow them to diminish our country. Many have said that for a lieutenant to speak out in public, they have been tired of the decades of crying inside the system with no change. Watch what the government officially says about this timing.
Do you agree with the sentiments being expressed there by the Surgeon General that our Commander-in-Chief, President Cyril Ramaphosa, is essentially presiding over a Mickey Mouse Defence Force that has been created by politicians?
Thank you very much, Alton, and good morning to all the viewers at home. I think I have to start by saying that it's just unfortunate that the general could not sense the occasion which he was addressing. It was a funeral where we were mourning the fallen heroes of our National Defence Force and the pride of our nation who passed on in the DRC in defense of peace in the region, in the conflict area, international. Now, it's just unfortunate because a general is a person of privilege who sits in the military command council, which is responsible for the security of the country on a daily basis and paid by the taxpayers. Now, it's just unfortunate that a general would say some of these things in an occasion which is not supposed to say, because it was only last week where we had the minister and the chief of the National Defence Force appearing before the Joint Standing Court of Defence. We did ask the chief of the National Defence Force, General Mapanya, that is the country safe? It's our borders safe? The general, the chief of the Defence Force guaranteed us as a portfolio committee only now to realize that one of his subordinates, who's the lieutenant general, is saying something different. We can't have the army top brass speaking in folk tongues in a country where people are depressed, there's high unemployment, people are anxious, hysteric, and somebody who's supposed to defend us and protect us is saying something different. This general, some of our generals must now start to account, because they need to appreciate the fact that the army now sees the death of 14 of our soldiers in DRC. The army and the National Defence Force is going to be on spotlight. We have to improve our military-civilian relations, and some of our generals need to help us to communicate positive stories on the defense of the country, on the safety of the country, on the safety of our...
I'm sorry. I have to pause it there. That is a textbook definition of gaslighting. He speaks about the sense of occasion, the importance of raising his issues in the right time with the right people around, which screams to me the idea of silencing and managing the PR look of South Africa's military force. Towards this part of the clip, he speaks about how the generals need to be held accountable, and in particular, the generals should not speak in forked tongues. And this rhetoric is not just a continuing one as an attempt to silence, or rather to reduce what the public knows and the state of our country and its defense purpose and ability. Now, this particular clip is a prime example of how, when we are not in the know as the public, how things can get twisted and packaged in such a way, even emphasizes that we need to tell military good stories and not, what he's alluding to, bring the public to a fearful state. But also what the general is making us aware of is that the real forked-tongued people are actually these politicians who claim to support and engage in activities and provide financial support for these military defense wings. We'll get to the Navy soon. But what comes across is how they've been strategically defunding the military and not growing the military's capabilities, the military's ability to perform the role of the big brother. The stick gets smaller and smaller. What can we do with a twig?
Our Navy is the first line of defense against threats that might emanate from the sea, whether piracy, illicit fishing, or other forms of maritime crimes. Our Navy must keep the critical shipping lanes safe and free so that our economy can prosper. Should or when disaster occurs at sea, our Navy must provide help through search and rescue operations, besides being part of the humanitarian assistance within the country and in the neighboring regions. In order to carry out all these important roles, we must focus on the capability and resources of our Navy. We need to modernize our Navy to match today's complex and dynamic challenges. We need to invest in our Navy because that will also mean we will be investing in our youth. Training and career opportunities in the Navy can inspire a whole new generation of South Africans, providing them with skills and experience that will benefit the nation as a whole. Therefore, ladies and gentlemen, the continuous absence of the Navy at sea is dangerous for our country and any maritime country for that matter. Today, as the country, we are battling the high pollution of illegal immigrants. Our society and the future of our kids is being destroyed by drugs which gets into their hands through the seas. I invite you to read an article which was recently published on the Defense Web titled Opinion: Between Two Oceans and the South African Navy in Crisis. Let me put it in simple way for ease of understanding for any ordinary South African. The point I want to bring across is that the South African Navy is not just a military force. It is a protector of our sovereignty, our maritime resources, and our citizens. At any given time, we have over 600 vessels in our territorial waters, of which some are involved in human trafficking, some with illegal fishing, some stealing our minerals, some smuggling weapons, while some polluting our beautiful seas and beaches.
And the Navy has spoken, addressing a very serious issue on how our waters are not protected to the level that they should be. Our waters are, as he mentioned, the biggest contributors to our economy, using our many ports from Cape Town, Richards Bay, Durban, and in those ports, because our naval power has been diminished, there isn't enough manpower, there isn't enough tools, ships to patrol the seas. There isn't enough funding going into making sure that there's a controlled entrance of goods. Some of the goods that come into our seas is illegal goods, is drugs. Now, the concern here is not just on what is coming into South Africa and what that does to our nation. Another concern that he raises is what goes out of South Africa, human trafficking, all these other things that are in play that both come in and go out, that affects the nation and strategically cripples our country. Now, in the video, it's quite long, but I just took a few snippets on it. The video itself, he also speaks about how in the defunding of the Navy, there's been a privatization of certain parts, and they want to privatize and patrol certain parts, and that is a big problem.